Hey guys. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use our knowledge and skills of factoring to take it up a notch and solve a quadratic. So we've been factoring quadratics. That's how we break them up to find what two things multiply to give us that particular quadratic. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to be actually using that to help us solve. So that's why we spend so much time on factoring. So make sure you have the packet or piece of paper ready, a pencil, and a calculator. First of all, what is a quadratic? A quadratic is any equation with the expression ax to the second power plus bx plus c. It just means that it has an x squared term. That specifically is a trinomial quadratic. Second, what is a quadratic equation? Well, a quadratic equation just means it has an equal sign, and for our purposes, for solving quadratics, it should be set equal to 0. So that's why it has that equals 0 there. Solving quadratic is very different than a linear equation. A linear equation is when we just solved a regular equation. When solving a quadratic, we're actually solving for two values of x, where in a linear equation, we were only solving for one. Also, when we solve a quadratic, it has to be set equal to 0. But when solving a linear function, we actually had to kind of move everything away from the x to the other side. So I just want to review what it means to solve a linear equation to just show you that this is not what we're doing. So first of all, it says solve for x. This was back in the day we did these equations. Your goal is to figure out what's happening to x, and we know it's being multiplied by -3 and then added by 5. So in order to solve, we reverse the order and the operation. So we're going to subtract by 5 first and then divide by 3. So first you're going to subtract 5 on both sides. Then you're going to bring down your -3x. You bring down your answer, 18. Then we're going to divide by -3 on both sides. And you would end up getting x equals -6. So that's what we were doing when solving just a linear equation. And like I said, this is totally different. You don't have to copy these notes down. I just wanted to review it first for you to know that don't do this when solving a quadratic. So you could check your answer by storing -6 in for x and type in your answer, type in 5 minus 3x, press enter, and you should come up with 23 equals 23. So that's a linear function. Now, today what we're doing is we're going into solving quadratics. So this is the first thing on your piece of paper. So make sure you have, this is where we're going to start taking notes, okay? So the steps for solving quadratic, the first thing you need to make sure is that your equation is set equal to 0. The second is you're going to use the appropriate factoring methods to factor that quadratic. And then we're going to tee it off, make sure each factor is equal to 0, solve the equation, and then we could check it using our calculator. Now, I'm not going to check this time using our calculator because it's just going to take up too much time. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this together. I'm trying to get my writing tools up. Okay, hold on one second. All right, so let's do this. So first of all, is the equation set equal to 0? And the answer is yes. Tomorrow, they will not be set equal to 0. So that's going to be an extra step. Now that we know it's set equal to 0, our next step is going to be to factor that quadratic. Now that's a trinomial. So let's go back to the steps for factoring a trinomial. We put the 1 in front. We multiply 1 times 12 and get positive 12. Now we find our factors of positive 12, and we know our 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And now I need to get my opposites. And a -1 times -12 gives me positive 12, -2 and -6, -3 and -4. Those are all the numbers that multiply to positive 12. Now the clue is to figure out which one of these pairs gives us that -7 in the middle. So you're going to take your calculator, you're going to add each set, and you're going to get here, you're going to get 13, 8, positive 7. So those are not the ones we want. This is -13, -8, and -7. So here's the numbers that we need, -3 and -4. So what we do next is we separate the middle term to -3x and -4x, and then we bring down our 12. Now again, this is why we really needed to know how to factor, so we can do this. And bring down your x squared. Now your next step is to group it. Don't forget your equals 0 either. Divide out your common factor. For that one's x, so you're going to get x times x minus 3 here. Common factor here is -4. Divide out -4, and you're left with x minus 3 equals 0. Now you pull that common factor out in front, x minus 3, and then your x minus 4 comes over here, and you have equals 0. So this should not be new. This is old material that we've already done factoring. So now this is where the new stuff happens. So now we're down to number 3. 3 says T off the factors. The factors are where the 2 multiplication happens. So it's where your parentheses are. So if you have like GCF, it would be separate where the parentheses are located. And same with dots. So first, then you're going to set each factor equal to 0. So the first factor is x minus 3. So I'm going to put my x minus 3 equals 0 here. And then your next factor is x minus 4 equals 0. And then your next step is solve the equation. So I'm just going to add 3 to both sides. Now this is a linear function or a linear equation. So now we're going to isolate our x. The whole point of solving this was to get it so we can solve it like a normal equation. Now here I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And you're left with x equals 4. Now if you notice, your factor is the opposite of your answer. So when your factors were x minus 3 and x minus 4, your answers come out to x equals 3 and x equals 4. So these are our 2 answers. Another way you can do it is you can put your answers in solution set brackets, not parentheses. If you put them in parentheses, we think you're talking about an ordered pair, which this is not. So we put them in solution set brackets, and I'm going to put squiggly 3, comma, squiggly 4. It doesn't matter the order, but it's important to remember that you have to put them in parentheses and, in brackets and not parentheses. Another thing to recognize, these are called our zeros. Eventually, we're going to also get into something they're called our roots and our solution. So those are the 3 different names we call the answers to a quadratic. Okay, so make sure you pause this video and get this down. So what you're going to do now is you're going to try the next 3 on your own. Again, you just need to set equal to 0, factor, solve. But check your answer on the Google Classroom. I have an answer key there. Please check and make sure if you get anything wrong, go to the next video and watch where I guide you through the next 3 examples. After you're done, though, this is where I want to see that you got the problems. You're going to go and complete the Google form that's assigned. They are all the same problems from the classwork attached to the packet, so you don't have to copy those. You could just do the questions right there on the packet, and the answers will be, you're going to have to put the answers in on the Google Classroom. Okay, so message me if you have any questions.